I can see that 2,000 years ago, people were saying the same sentence.
The older I get, the more emotional I become about these things, where you see something that grounds you 3,500 years back. It's very powerful.
The Jewish people is Hebrew. If you took away Hebrew, the Jewish people would disappear.
We're in downtown Jerusalem in one of the most busy streets in this city. And everywhere you look around me, you see the Hebrew language. On every sign, on every storefront, it's present anywhere the eye touches. But the story of how we got to this place is nothing short of incredible. Just 150 years ago, this language that was reserved for religious and holy practices came back to life right here in downtown Jerusalem. This isn't a simple story. We have to go back and find out how this language lasted, how it evolved and was kept in the diaspora. It's an incredible tale of how the ancient language of Hebrew came back to life here in this land.
How did modern Hebrew succeed in being revived? Because Jews all along continued to pray in Hebrew and read Hebrew.
Within the span of a single lifetime, basically one person converted an entire people to speaking a new language.
I was born in the United States. I share Hebrew with people who were born in Kurdistan and people who were born in Yemen.
To become one nation, the only thing that can combine us, that can prevent the separation, is the language.
We were gone and now we're back speaking the language in the land of our forefathers. Very spiritually significant when you connect those dots.
We're making our way into central Jerusalem to visit the Hebrew Language Academy, which is really in the entrance to the city. And we're about to meet Steve Fassberg, who's an expert on ancient Hebrew. And he's going to sort of walk us through the history of the Hebrew language, how it came from the ancient days all the way to present-day modern Hebrew.
Shalom, Mati.
Shalom, shalom.
Baruch haba.
Welcome. Good to see you.
The Academy was set up in 1953. It was felt that Hebrew needed a guiding hand. The mandate was to help the Hebrew language develop, and perhaps the most important task was to develop a comprehensive dictionary of the Hebrew language.
Let's use the real word. A huge miracle happens in a language that was dead for millennia.
Dead as a spoken language.
Dead as a spoken living language.
Yes.
It was only used as a holy language, but there are many languages that are only used as holy languages.
Yes.
I don't know of any other one that's come back to life.
I don't know of any other examples where they've taken a dead language and succeeded in making it a living language. There are 9 million Israelis today, and for about 80% of the population, Hebrew is their native tongue.
The Hebrew language is alive and well in modern-day Israel. Today's Hebrew is somehow both very similar to the Hebrew of the Bible and at the same time very different.
So Hebrew, what do people need to know about it?
Hebrew is a Semitic language. When did people begin to speak Hebrew? We don't know exactly. All you can say with any certainty is that the oldest Hebrew inscriptions are from roughly 1000 BCE, around the time of King David. Most of the books of the Hebrew Bible are written in Biblical Hebrew. Now,
when time frame? 2700?
Time frame is about 1000 BCE to the destruction of the First Temple, 586 BCE. In the Second Temple period, the use in Hebrew is decreasing because Aramaic has become the lingua franca of the entire Middle East. The great question is, did Jesus speak Hebrew? Did he speak Aramaic? And the answer is he probably spoke both. He spoke both, and he probably knew Greek also. By the end of the Second Temple period, not a lot of people are using Hebrew. Everybody's speaking Aramaic. Hebrew is no longer a living language. It became a holy language. Hebrew never dies as a written language.
That's sort of one of the key tools that keeps it alive throughout history, is that the Jewish people continue to practice it, reading, writing, speaking. They're always...
They pray 3 times a day.
Yeah.
They're praying in Hebrew. They read the Hebrew Bible. They're reading it in Hebrew. They read Aramaic, an Aramaic translation of the Bible to understand it. And some Jews are reading Greek to understand it, the Jews in Egypt. But Hebrew continues to be studied.
As the Jewish people spread through the world, The Hebrew language helped unite us and keep us connected to our roots for over 1,000 years.
In different parts of the world, they're influenced by the languages of the surrounding areas. So if they're in Europe, they're going to be influenced by German, they're going to be influenced by Slavic. If they're in North Africa, they're going to be influenced by Arabic. And when the Jews make it to Spain, they're influenced also by Spanish. And what you get is a creation of languages which have a very strong Hebrew basis and also a very strong foreign basis. So you get Yiddish, which is German and Hebrew. You get Judeo-Arabic, which is Hebrew and Arabic, and you get Ladino, which is Spanish and Hebrew.
And this is sort of representative of the Jews just sort of settling into these different communities.
They settle in the communities, they preserve their own identity, but they're heavily influenced.
Then, in the modern era, something started to shift.
The European Enlightenment affects Jews, and you get Jews who think that Hebrew should no longer just be a holy language, but it should also be a language used for teaching Jews about the world. It is considered scandalous by the rabbis at first because it smacks of secularism. You're translating science books into the Holy Tongue, into Hebrew. You're translating literature into the Holy Tongue. And they're even writing Hebrew novels for the first time. This is the Hebrew Enlightenment, and it paves the way then for the revival of Hebrew as a spoken language, which is going to be towards the end of the 19th century, and it's going to be tied into Zionism and the return to the land of Israel.
And I think that's the power of the language, where it's not just a modern language, it's something that carries these deep spiritual, ancestral, religious, ethnic, cultural. It's all packed into the ABCs, our Aleph Bet.
Yes, Hebrew is the DNA of Jewish culture, of Jewish continuity. It's the one thing that links me back to previous generations, takes me back 3,000 years. It's managed to survive at great odds, where other languages have disappeared.
Welcome back. What a great miracle, the Hebrew language.
I mean, isn't it amazing? A language that was dead for 2,000 years, that was only read as a holy language, comes back to life with the people in the land of Israel. And not only that, I mean, it's renewed, it's growing and moving forward even today.
Our generation is probably the only generation for 2,000 years that open the Bible and understand what the Bible says in Hebrew.
Yeah. We get to experience something very unique, which is the combination of the ancient and the new. Not just a biblical language, not just a holy language. It's not like reading in Latin or, or in some original text. It's alive and moving forward today. So we have that combination of the ancient meaning, the biblical meaning, and the everyday use of the language. Samuel, let's go deeper into how this happened, what it took to bring this language back to life.
Yes, let's watch together the Hebrew language.
Right behind me is the home of Eliezer ben Yehuda, the man who almost single-handedly recreated and brought back to life the Hebrew language that we use today. And this really is a story of humble beginnings. It's a man who locked himself and his family in a home and brought back to life the words, the language, the context of what was a biblical and religious language and turned it back into a modern and everyday use language. It's a truly incredible story, and it all started here. Hey guys.
Hi.
Thank you so much for coming.
Nice to be here.
Good to see you.
You too, you too.
My name is Liraz Raz, and I'm married to Itamar.
I'm the great-grandson of Eliezer ben Yehuda.
So let's say someone has never heard of Eliezer ben Yehuda. Tell us that story.
Eliezer ben Yehuda came to Israel on 1881. Jerusalem was a place where people were talking many different languages.
Ladino, Arabic, French.
German, English, Turkish, anything you want. Nothing but Hebrew.
Only in the prayer.
Only in prayer. So people came to Israel, but they had no common language.
No.
So his mission was to revive the Hebrew. The people was against him because they say in Jerusalem that you shouldn't speak Hebrew. You should only pray in Hebrew. And the only people who were with him were the newcomers from Russia that understood that we will never exist if we will not have our own language. So Eliezer ben Yehuda had a big mission. The first mission was to revive the Hebrew. He needed to have thousands of new words that were not exist. Aeroplane, car, everything that we have today, nothing existed. Another problem was, how do you spread the message? There were no journals at the time. So what he did, he used to write the news, to type the news, and to take the newspaper and spread it all over. There was nobody that would do it.
And he did all of this himself.
Yeah.
He was very much a man on the mission.
He was much beyond that.
This man who doesn't speak Hebrew comes to Israel and dedicates his life to creating a modern adaptation of a language that's been lost.
He was a genius. He learned 12 languages within 2-3 years in order to be able to write his... He was a genius. He was an extreme. Nothing would stop him.
In order to accomplish his mission, Eliezer ben Yehuda utilized some extreme methods that are still debated today.
He thought that the only way we will create Hebrew in Israel was if their children's tongue will be Hebrew. So you have to talk to your child Hebrew from the day he was born. And what he did, in his first child, which is called Itamar ben Avi, who is my grandfather, until the age of 8, was isolated in the house. So he will not hear anybody else talking English.
His only friend
or
was
any
a
other
dog.
language.
His only friend was the dog.
Her only friend was a dog, yes.
I mean, you're a mother. This is a very mean thing to do to a child.
Yes, it's very. You know, in Israeli school, in elementary school, people hold a court for Ben Yehuda with the judge and everything, if he was too much tough with him or not.
A mock trial.
Right.
Yes.
And Itamar ben Avi wrote with the time that he admired his father. And he thought that what his father did was the right thing to do in order to change.
This is an incredible story. 100 and something years later, we take for granted, obviously we speak Hebrew, we write in Hebrew, we read in Hebrew, but if it wasn't for the incredible sacrifice and insanity of Eliezer ben Yehuda, this wouldn't be possible today.
Eliezer just said that you can have a nation without a language.
A nation will not exist without a language and without a land. Mm-hmm. Now the question, why not English? Why not German? The reason is that we are different. We are Jewish people, and our own identity is the Hebrew language in the town Jerusalem. So the land was Israel, and the language was Hebrew.
After exploring the depths of our Hebrew language and the ongoing Jewish story, one thing is very clear to me. Hebrew, the land, and the people of Israel are all interdependent. The survival of one without the other is truly impossible.
Deep down inside, there must be something religious to it, and maybe even mystical. For me, the Hebrew language is this uniting factor that binds the Jewish people together from generation to generation, and from community to community.
The only way to unite the people, to bring one culture, one nation, is by having one language.
This is the language of God. This is the language that God gave to Moses on Mount Sinai. It's a completely living language, and it's thanks to the efforts of people like Ben Yehuda who wanted to make it a reality.
Hey, I'm Mati Shoshani, and thank you for watching the TBN Israel YouTube channel. We hope this video gave you greater understanding of Israel and her people. If you haven't already, subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell so you never miss a video. We'd love to hear from you, so be sure to share what you've learned and ask your questions in comments below. And invite your friends to join the conversation.